voters in a day and age of 30-second sound bites?
Well, it's part of the problem with politics in America today. Most of the information people get, they get literally in a 30 or 60-second soundbite. There are other vehicles for getting information. You know, the web, the internet, is one of the best vehicles, and it's a vehicle that's used a great deal by young people, because that's real democracy, grassroots democracy in action. For those who use the internet, it's extraordinarily valuable. The problem is it also leaves a lot of people out who don't use the internet. I think the debates are helpful, you know, because in the debates for an hour or 2 hours, depending on the length, you at least get a more substantive discussion of what's actually going on in America and substantive ideas about what needs to be done. But I really think this organization is about voter empowerment. I am so for voter empowerment. I think if the American people demand more, if you demand better, if you demand better behavior from your candidates, I mean, if you say, we're not interested in all this petty fighting between you and trying to tear each other down, we deserve better than that, they'll respond. I assure you they'll respond. And that's what creates the kind of substantive, meaningful dialogue that allows voters to be educated and make real informed decisions.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm just going to ask 2 questions, and then Matt will do the last one, because we really want to give you guys a chance to get as many questions in as you can. There are a lot of young voters here today. There's also a lot of real grown-up voters. And I think this is an issue that is relevant for all of us. In the next few years, a lot of us are going to be entering the job market. The economy is the #1 issue in the polls right now. It's all they're talking about on the news. I know you've been talking about it a lot. Can you give us some examples of what you would do as president in terms of the economy and the job market?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. We'll try to make this answer shorter, because you could spend an hour on this.
I know.
Here are the things that I would do. First of all, we need to stimulate the economy right now. We should have not waited this long to stimulate the economy, because it was obvious things were going down as early as 6 weeks to 8 weeks ago. So a little over a month ago, I proposed a set of ideas to stimulate the economy. Here's what I'd do. First, I'd invest in building green infrastructure so that we can create jobs and, at the same time, move America in a serious way in the direction we need to move on the issue of the environment and global warming. Huge economic opportunity, building out green infrastructure. We can create, by the way, 1 million new jobs in America as we make this transition. It's a great opportunity. Second, we got to modernize our unemployment insurance laws. They don't cover enough people. And what that means is when the unemployment rate goes up, as it did here in South Carolina just last month, 6,000 jobs were lost in this state in the month of December. What that means is less people are eligible for unemployment, so they're out of money, they can't put money into the economy, it drags the economy down. So we want to expand unemployment insurance for those people who haven't done anything wrong and have lost their jobs. The third thing we need to do is to get more help to the states whose budgets are in trouble. And then last, we got to deal with the mortgage foreclosure crisis. And what I do is create a national home rescue fund so that we get transitional help to people who are in danger of losing their homes. And that we restructure and refinance some of these loans and change the laws to permit that. Now, let me say one last thing. Those are all short-term, except for the green infrastructure, which is long-term. But the other thing we need to do is we have to strengthen and grow the middle class in this country. What's happening, if you just picture America's economy as a pyramid in your head, then the foundation of that economy are middle-class workers, middle-class families. Whenever the middle class is strong, the foundation is strong, and the economy sustains growth over the long term. The problem we've had in this country over the last couple of decades is we've had a lot of growth at the top and no meaningful growth at the bottom. So it's become top-heavy. It's very unstable. The economic growth that you see today is almost entirely among the wealthiest Americans and the biggest corporations. The benefits of that growth are not getting to the middle class and to working people. And it creates this unstable economic environment that allows this economic downturn that we're seeing right now. So all the things that I've already talked about, greening the economy, universal health care, a trade policy that actually looks after American jobs, all those things are very important to creating a strong economic foundation.
My last question is, over the past past few years, many conservative government officials on the federal level, but particularly on the state level, have been slowly chipping away at Roe v. Wade. This is happening through all kinds of incremental legislation, whether it's making it illegal for minors to cross state lines, whatever it is. I'd like to hear your stance on abortion and also hear what, if anything, you'll do to maintain and protect the Supreme Court decision of Roe v. Wade.
Well, I am a strong believer and a strong supporter of this decision being made by women in consultation with their God and their I do want to say, though, just because I think it's important to say, that I think this is one of those issues where it is really important that we not use it to divide this country, because there are very good people who have a different view about this, and in some cases it's based on their faith, in some cases it's based on their view of what's right and wrong. And I think we have to be, nobody made me God. You know, I have my own view about it. In fact, one of the reasons I have the view that I have is I don't think it's the government's role to tell women what to do. I think that's a decision but I do think it's very important that we be very inclusive and respectful of people who have a different view, because this is one of those subjects where people have deeply held beliefs. Now, the one thing I want to add to that is this is an example, not the only one, but this is an example of how important this election is in terms of the United States Supreme Court. Because if you're concerned about women's rights, civil rights, workers' rights, all the things that many of us are deeply concerned about, whoever is going to be elected the next president will have a huge influence on what the U.S. Supreme Court looks like. And if you look at the decisions that have been coming out of the U.S. Supreme Court, they're frightening. I mean, they really are. I mean, I'll just use one as an example, since we've talked a little bit about women's rights. There's a case that came out just in the last year where they literally held that if a woman's working side by side with a man for many years, doing exactly the same job, like in a production line, and that she discovers after a long period of time that she's being paid some fraction of what the man's making, and she brings an action for discrimination, that she can only recover for the last 6 months. Because it was her responsibility to figure out that they were cheating her and discriminating against her. Now, this is the kind of problem that we have. They also, in another decision, literally turned Brown versus Board of Education on its head by very narrowly, but basically what they said is it's very difficult for a school to voluntarily desegregate. This is not the kind of decision. This is not the kind of decision making we want to see in this United States Supreme Court. And whoever the next president is, and I intend it to be me, whoever the next president is going to have a huge influence on the shape of that court for a long time to come. Which is why we must win, and why you must vote for and nominate a candidate who can win in places and compete in places like South Carolina and North Carolina. And you're looking at that candidate right now.